Welcome to Disruption Blueprint with Shannon Spotswood from RFG Advisory. We've built an award-winning platform with innovative technology, comprehensive service, and a team of individuals who are experts in their field to serve advisors. Join us for this journey where we explore everything that has to do with running an independent advisor practice as we bring together industry experts and innovative minds who are on the bleeding edge to challenge the status quo, foster new ideas, and create a path for advisors to unleash their growth potential. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to Disruption Blueprint. I'm Shannon Spotswood. I'm so excited to have you join us today for a very special podcast. We are in the studio with none other than Fidelity's Rohit Mahna, who is going to really share with us some incredible insights about our industry, about disruption, about innovation, about talent, about failure, and we're going to do some gazing into the crystal ball. So, Rohit, it is so good to be with you. Thank you so much for being here.
It's go time, Shannon. I'm looking forward to this. We've been talking about it for quite some time, so it's officially go time.
I feel like we both live in a state where it's always go time.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. Well said.
So one of the things that I have always been excited about with regards to your role at Fidelity is that you, like me, are an industry outsider. You spent the bulk of your career building one of the most, I think, game-changing companies globally, Salesforce, and joined Fidelity now a couple years ago. And what I thought would be helpful to start, because of that outsider's perspective, now being married with a couple years of being in our industry, is what has surprised you most about working with advisors and the platforms that are serving them?
Yeah. It's actually a great way to start because you said it really well. So I worked at Salesforce for a long time, and it's wild. I'm almost 3 years into this role at being at Fidelity. And, you know, when I joined, I would tell you in the first, I'd say 3 months, this is what really, really surprised me, is the continuation of conversation that I was having. So what I mean by that was, like, when I worked in my previous role, everything was very front office driven, talking about, you know, business strategy, the firm, how are we going to help you grow your business? You know, how do you get more efficient and balance growth at the same time? What is the role tech needs to play? So what was wild to me is within my first 3 months, and those same concepts were the conversations kept going. Obviously, different things were happening because I'm supporting broker-dealer firms that are on the RIA side. So there's a compliance side. There's, you know, things that we're doing with processing, account open, so many other things. But what was really surprised me was that continuation. And honestly, 3 years later, it's same thing. We're still talking about those same concepts. So that was the first big surprising point to me. I was not expecting that.
Did you, as you contemplated the job and then what you've experienced the last 3 years, did you expect the amount of disruption? I really feel like, you know, when you joined 3 years ago, there was this accelerated pace of change. And if anything, that has been heightened. And you and I have spent a lot of time talking about our industry compared to other industries and the changing expectations, not only of advisors, but really of clients and what they want out of their relationships with their advisors, what they want out of their custody experience with Fidelity. So did it surprise you, the pace of change? And do you see that as a bigger challenge than you expected or a bigger opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I'll break that down and then you follow up if I miss something here. So the first thing I'd say is, one, high level, yes, I was expecting. What I wasn't expecting is what you're getting at, is the speed of it. But even back one step up, think of all of us that are in this industry right now. When you step out of it, you're a consumer of other brands, right? So your definition of like digital engagement, what you expect from a brand, from a firm, from an individual, is set by your experiences outside of our industry. If you look within our space, and I was very, very fortunate in my past role, I got exposed to so many different industries, but I ran a bunch of the different financial services groups and strategy teams and some product stuff. So I got to see what was going on in financial services across the world, but in different lines of business. So what I mean by that was like, you saw the wave of change happening over the years in payments, what had gone on there, what then had gone on in consumer banking. So think like traditional retail banking, the impact of e-commerce that came into that, what the expectation of, of your phone, of what, all of us as consumers want of your retail banking brand, on your mobile device, all that stuff was set by experiences outside, of industry, but it happened really fast, right? Like what went on in payments, what went on. I think that wave started a few years ago with with fintech and innovation that was going on, but it's now hit scale, right? It's no longer just at the edges. Like this is happening at scale, at pace from our side. I view our role as we're really a technology provider to you and everyone else in industry, right? Our goal is to build world-class tech ops service capabilities that are going to help you grow. All of you guys are accelerating your own growth in industry, whether that's because you got outside money coming in or you're just growing on your own. So I think what's really cool to me is there's this convergence happening in wealth right now that I was expecting this to happen because I'd seen these waves of change across other industries and in financial services. I just was not expecting the speed of it within the last I would really say the last 2 years. My first year, I saw a lot of discussion. It just feels like the last 24 months, it has just cranked up.
Do you think that as you talk to players throughout the industry, that there is an awareness that I love how you frame that up of a convergence. Do you think that there is an awareness of how this moment is truly going to define the future of the industry?
I mean, I think it's whenever you're in any rapid transformation, you think what is going, like you mentioned it earlier, like the crystal ball, you think what's going to happen, but the best strategy is like just plan for the next 12 months because 12 months later, the game will get reset and then you need to think longer term. Where maybe in other industries, you could have like a long-term strategy. I think the best approach in our space right now is your long-term strategy should be 12-ish months out. So when I've had that type of discussion, people have like reframed their thinking to say, wow, maybe like I thought I knew what is going to go on. And I'm sure we're going to get to tech and AI and, the capital infusion coming in, like everything is just going to happen much, much faster.
I love that. It's very freeing when you think in 12-month increments. I mean, you want to have obviously your mission aligned long term, but it can be paralyzing for people when they're living in this world of like, I need a 3-year plan, I need a 5-year plan. What we say at RFG is a week feels like a month and a month feels like a year.
I like that.
Because that's truth. I mean, that is how dynamic of the state of play that we're currently living in. So I want to dig a little bit deeper because I think you've got a very unique perspective on the client experience. I believe when I speak to our peers and our competitors and out in the industry, that there's a significant amount of discussion that is happening around the backbone of driving scale and efficiency at the platform level and thinking about how to serve advisors, thinking about data, thinking about AI. And there is certainly a conversation that is happening around the consumer, but I often feel like there is a disconnect. And we still, as an industry, and some of this, I believe we use our regulatory environment as almost an excuse to deliver and just deliver a subpar client experience and just accept the way it's always been done. So share with me, because Fidelity and Fidelity Labs sits at the tip of the spear on this, of of the generational wealth transfer is going to demand. The clients are telling us they want to experience this differently, whether it's how they're interacting with their advisor, how they're scheduling meetings, how they're opening accounts, how they're thinking about their life goals, what they're living inside their client portal. I'd love for you, you've got such a unique viewpoint on this, to share where you think the consumer experience is headed.
I mean, you hit a couple things like client experience, wealth transfer. And then the reality is, outside of your age, everyone is kind of expecting certain things, right? Like everyone wants digital, but you want to be super personalized and high touch. So you want this like hybrid of what you get face to face versus what you could do on a boat with your advisor or with the team, or, through Zoom or anything like that. So let me kind of break that down, and then we go in different direction. So the first, I just want to hit this out of the top because we've been talking about forever wealth transfer. Let's just put math against it, right? Like mathematically, we know this is going to happen. When we look at our own data, we say 57% of assets, of client assets, are going to change hands by the year 2045, right? So like just math tells us it's going to happen. If you look at outside data, so let's just look at Cerulli. What Cerulli data will tell us that 91% of the time, children of adults find their own path to their own advisors. If you look at more data on that, our own data, we know that if you think of just like a normal advisory team, whether it's the principal or the team itself, only 13% of the time they've reached out beyond the mother or father, whoever they're working with, to that G2, G3, or anyone else in the family. So if that's just like the situation of what's going on there, I think it gets your second point of, client engagement, client experience. How do you build connections, across G1, 2, 3? How do you build your own team internally? Because maybe you want to pair off, maybe not the lead advisor, but someone else on the team or someone else in your larger ecosystem to build relationships. I saw a lot of this stuff, to your point, when we worked with other large global banks that were trying to do like cross line of business work, and how do we do, lifetime value firms, and how do we grow wallet share firms. There's a lot of like common themes. So what I realized a long time ago, and I just was very fortunate to work with really, really incredible, innovative people that we made great teams with. So we'd come up with is a framework of transformation. And it's wild. We come up with this years ago, and I think it's still just as relevant today, because I realized when you take everything you just said together, what I just went through, everyone's definition of transformation is different, right? Like sometimes you think you gotta change everything, but maybe that's your and my definition of transformation and change. Maybe to someone else, it's like a step change. And to your point, maybe the out clause was, yeah, we're waiting on regulators, or my internal compliance team has given me a roadblock. Maybe that's the excuse. It's just their own appetite for transformation. It's just kind of just a little bit. So the way I used to think about this is threefold, and we'll try not to be too wordy with this, is renovate, transform, and transcend. So if you think of those three buckets, it's kind of like a good framework. And you could do transformation in all of them. Like renovate might just be, let's work with what we're currently doing around client experience and just tweak around the edges and make it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Transform might be, hey, let's take one business process and let's make that better. Or maybe let's build a better client portal for, the way our advisor is engaging with the client and the household. Maybe let's put some of our goals that we built in our plan into that portal. Transcend would be like the jobs to be done mentality. So I give you the extreme example of that is no one's going to wake up tomorrow and say, hey, I want to buy I want to buy a mortgage. Wake up tomorrow and say, hey, I want to buy a house. and you want someone to help you with that entire experience end to end, right? Like, yes, I need a mortgage. Maybe I need a line of credit. I need to move. I need to find a new school system. I need to find new friends in a new town. I'm moving out of state, like tax like you're looking for everything. You're looking for a concierge service. So sometimes what I realize over there is people lead with that, but someone's just looking to renovate.
Right.
And that's super transformational to them to just figure out the step change.
That is such a powerful framework, especially when you put it in the context of we're living in a time where you need to be intentional about your 1-year plan.
Totally.
So if you put the framework of transformation against a 1-year plan, and then you can really bring your team along for, all right, what are we going to put in the 3 buckets? What's going in renovate? What's going in transform, and what's going into transcend? Now you're going to be able to be honest about where you're sitting in your client experience, where you're sitting in your multi-generational relationship development, and where you want your firm to go.
Yeah.
I love that.
The 1 year, maybe 18 months, right? Like 12, 18-ish months is just the right way to think about it.
So let's talk about leveraging technology at scale. I feel like there's a spirited debate happening in the industry where the firm of the past, the marker of success would be, I have a high minimum, I'm serving $1 million client, and I can handle between 80 and 120 households. And that is the marker of success, and really how G1 has built very successful firms. I am always willing to take the opposite side of that soapbox argument, and believe that is for the G2, G3 advisor, not a reality that they're going to be able to live in. Because to your point, those numbers, let's talk about the math. They are going to have to be more adept at running a multi-generational path and being able to have profitability in serving these different life stage clients built into their model. So how do you see technology and AI leveraging time to allow advisors to build those firms that are better suited to be successful as they position themselves for 2030 and beyond?
Yeah. Maybe I'll make a couple points and then drill into them. So the first, just hearing you talk, I think immediately balanced business. That balanced business means maybe like your traditional client is your highest revenue client, or maybe there's the most margin there, the most ability to bring full service to them, a long-term planning, all types of things. But that is not going to be your client in 5 years, or maybe even less than that. You need to invest in the early stage, client that maybe is not super profitable today, but if you profile them the right way, you figure out the right way to build the right engagement model, support model, you create value for them early on, that they could be your lifetime, like the lifetime value of that client becomes gigantic over many, many years to come. So that's like balance, right? So then you think about, well, how do you service that? No one can hire, tens of thousands of people to just throw bodies at it to do it. So you start thinking about, well, how do you now balance like great teams, advisors and advisory teams internally, the right platform capabilities around them so that they could create more value, go beyond just, being a great broker to being a great advisor, to giving holistic advice, to adding in estate and tax and, all different types of things. But then also, so I view that as like how tech can be used to build platform. And we can have a whole in-source, outsource discussion on that. Yeah. But I think where you probably want to go is the scale side.
Yeah.
So where I think the upside for AI is that, to say, how do we look at what I would call like micro AI, not macro AI. So the whole like renovate AI, because it's small stuff, not the transcend AI that's big, big, complicated stuff. Maybe that's fun to talk about with AI, but what's going to give you massive impact to your firm or any firm that wants to scale their business to go like what you're doing with the top end that's high touch and scale it down to like emerging clients. I think, data and AI helps there. So how? It's like, well, hey, let's look at processes that we're doing and how can we maybe automate those processes so we could give time back to an advisor so that they could do more high touch face-to-face stuff. How do we maybe automate capabilities? So if we're using, maybe a digital app or maybe a portal, how can we like automate communication from an advisor out to me, the client, and it could be more woven into my daily life in like micro moments, the way I might use money, or maybe the way like a fitness app gives me little tips. Like, how can AI help me automate things like that? So let me pause there because you might want to go in a different direction.
I love where you're going. And it's interesting because, we're very passionate as a firm about technology. We have said from day one, RFG is a client experience company. First, we're a technology company. Second, I love how you describe Fidelity as a technology company because I think of you in that light as well. And here's what's so interesting about this. There are so many startups that are, dabbling in this like convergence of AI and client experience and the portals and these micro drips and the marketing and it's not like right now you and I would not be able to say, oh, this is who you go to for that. This is how you do it. Like it is emergent and it is happening right now. And I think that's part of why advisors are struggling to wrap their brain around, like, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I have yet to meet an advisor because I continue to be a little bit gobsmacked that the data consistently shows up that advisors spend 80% of their time on non-revenue generating activities today. It's still the majority of advisors. It makes absolutely no sense. And I think part of that is habit. Part of that is because they have designed this high touch experience for the top revenue producing clients, and it's not scalable. So I believe like this is really, if we want to think about where you spend your time for transcendent in your framework of transformation, it is questioning this delivery of those micro moments. And it's an arms race out there. Like I have seen so much tech, I was at Future Proof a week or so ago, and the number of conversations of pinpoint, though not comprehensive, pinpoint solutions to try and solve this, you could spend 2 days just on this topic, just meeting those tech companies. So what do you think needs to happen where we're now, is it being cooked up in the Fidelity lab? Are you, having conversations where you feel like we're going to be landing on some technology we're going to be able to put in place to make this possible for advisors?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back to data for a sec, because what you just said, I know that I've spent a lot of years in, innovation, fintech with, firms building, I think what you said was really well, like point-based solutions. This happened to the marketing world for years where in MarTech, there was just tens of thousands. If anyone is listening to this is like a marketeer, this. MarTech stack was wild forever. And it was just point solutions all over the place. That's kind of happening in the wealth space right now, right? And Future Proof, in a good way, brought that to life of just seeing all the stuff going on. So one, you could say, that's awesome. That's great innovation. The challenge for a firm leader is it's beyond overwhelming, right? Because you don't know where to stop. Like you might get really love like a couple of them, but then you realize, is there interoperability? Like, does data go between them, or like, do I need to stitch it together? So here's the data that I think about. We looked a lot at this. McKinsey did, and I'm going to go back to some AI stuff because I think a lot of this ties in. And I think some of this is obvious, but it's important to say. So what McKinsey research looked at was just automation. And they felt that 60-70% of just knowledge workers' time or things they're doing can be automated. So what I looked at was like, all right, if that's a stat, what does that mean in our space, right? Like if I'm a revenue generating advisor, what does that mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
And what it means to me is if I'm servicing, account sizes of, let's say, 5 to 600K of my client size, and I use that same McKinsey model on it, I'm going to say, hey, maybe on average, I'm servicing about 150 families right now. That will tell me if I do some automation, I can ramp that up to 180 to 190. So that's that's a compelling reason now, because I can get scale in my business, help more families, service more families, grow my business. So that's like the main point one, that like there is value in trying to figure this out. I think the role of big custodians like us, or big tech vendors maybe that you're using, is trying to rationalize some of this to say, okay, what can we, and I'll just take us, what can we as a custodian, where can we create more value for you in REA by maybe building more of these capabilities into our overall stack? So I view that as like the value of Fidelity. Maybe it's like core capabilities like account opening, money movement, service. You want to call in, you want better service that's got, insight to action quicker. The person picking up the phone knows your firm better, can respond to your needs quicker. Like that's like core capabilities. But maybe the value is, and you just touched on this, things that maybe we're incubating in our lab side, which I'll come back to in a second. But maybe it's a better connection to our charitable side, better connection to our asset management capabilities, maybe some insight into what we're doing in our 401k or stock plan side. Like, I think there's a ton of value of how we can bring that to a firm leader that's growing their business. I think the lab side is super interesting to me personally, because we're doing a lot of this, this testing around AI. Some of it we build into our core, ends up in our core capabilities, but some of it just becomes capabilities that we launch out there. So two of them that have gotten the most traction is Safer and Catchlet, which I think are super cool.
I'm a big fan of both.
I know you. I was trying to tee it up for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And like both of them are using a ton of AI to help with automation. Safer is doing it more from a compliance side, using AI to help you from a compliance side. Catchlight is doing it more from like a lead gen, funnel management, getting more action in the leads that are coming through the funnel. So I like, that's where my mind goes when you bring up this. I think the role of a custodian or any big tech vendor is to help rationalize this so you can get more value out of it quicker. And maybe we can do more of the interoperability and bring data together for you.
Love it. And, big plug, if you haven't looked into Safer or Catchlight, we're happy to tell you and show you, because we are clients of Safer now for a long time and are, beta testing Catchlight. So we're happy to share what we've learned there, and very exciting. This is the forefront of how AI is going to change your business. I want to pivot, really kind of take a big pivot and talk about talent and talk about leadership. I have a fantastic coach, and he said this to me, and it really struck me. He's like, we are living in a time of an abundance of what and a shortage of who. And he was speaking about it in the context of leadership, and how there's a gap in leadership, in true servant leadership. And that is so critical. And it's such an important part of the equation for solving the talent. I'm going to go so far as to call it a crisis. It's not just a shortage, the talent crisis in our industry. And there's a lot of factors at play. But I think it would be helpful for advisors to hear from you. You're a great transformational leader. You're an elite performer. You've really demonstrated what it means to be a servant leader, as you know, in your role as head of
I'm
client
trying.
growth at Fidelity.
I'm trying. Don't oversell it.
Well, and I can say this because I've had this great privilege of interacting with so many of your senior leaders. And I think that it speaks volumes of your leadership because they're all such world-class professionals. But what advice do you have for advisors, both what I will call founder advisors, as well as this next gen, of what does it mean to think about leadership and to put yourself on a pathway to becoming a great leader?
Well, one, thank you for the nice compliment. Here's kind of the way I think of anyone who's broken away, anyone that's starting in RAA or is like in a, stage 2, stage 3 of it. You're basically a startup, right? And I think when you're a startup, you kind of get the founder syndrome potentially. What I mean by that is like you can be an incredible producer, but to make that mental shift to being a great leader can be a little bit tricky, right? Because like what made you a great producer, I think was where you get, it does not always make you an incredible leader. So when I abstract out of that and say, all right, well, if that's what's going on, what's the ultimate goal? The goal is like you want to build a bigger firm. So you want more people that kind of like embody what you're trying to execute. So what I think of here a lot is like you want a firm of like thrivers, not survivors. And you see this a lot with big firms.
Yeah.
And you see the classic 80-20. It's like the wrong 80-20 where like 20, and this could be big firms and even small firms. Like 80% of your human capital employees are really just surviving. 20% are thriving. And what I mean by the thrivers are like they're embodying what you're trying to do, as a leader, CEO. They're like executing super high. They're like their attrition is really low. They're going to be there for the long run because they've totally bought into it. You want that at scale. So how do you do that? Like maybe you get lucky and you hire all these people, but
there is no luck in this. We both know that.
So what I think of like your goal is like a great leader is to do a few specific things. There's a lot more, but in my opinion, you got to do these few specific things. First, you've got to really lock in on a vision. I think this sounds so obvious, but it's amazing how many times I do not see this out there. Like you get focused on execution, but you've not thought enough on like, what is my vision for the firm? What is our purpose? What is our culture? How are we executing every day? The second thing is you got to stay focused on that. I'll see a lot of times people say, no, Rohit, I got the vision. You come back like 6 months later, oh, I've changed it. Well, that means you probably didn't think enough on it first, or maybe you didn't crowdsource and build the right community to help you lock in on the right vision. So I think like vision's super important. Second is you got to stay focused on it. Third is you got to drive great alignment in your organization. And maybe you're working with a lot of outside firms because maybe you're smaller and you've outsourced a lot. I think it's imperative you drive that alignment to everyone outside your firm. So think of whoever you're working with this is my team, this is my company, and it's my onus to drive that alignment. And then the last thing is you got to really know your people, right? Because you got to know, how do you motivate people? How do you inspire them? Maybe people need certain things, others do not need that. I think that's like the foundational stuff of like great leaders, and more importantly, like getting everyone in your firm to embody the vision that you're trying to do. Yeah. Because you can't be in every meeting, every strategy session. You need everyone in the organization embodying it.
One exercise that we've been working on lately that I think is really a powerful work that you can do on your team is, because I completely agree with you, and especially the way that you lined it out, is that everyone on your team should be able to, with specificity, describe their role and responsibility and how it ties back to the mission, so that it's so easy to just assume you have alignment and assume that everyone knows why they're doing it and how it benefits your clients and how it's going to help to drive that mission and reach your goals. But it's amazing how much ambiguity can live in that space. And so that's just a really easy exercise once you've articulated, this is our mission, and then everyone on your team, what is your role and how does it tie back to that mission? And you will see immediately. It's like, it's not just like a spotlight. It's like you turned on the sun and the moon and you will see every single cobweb in your business once you get those answers back, and it will blow your mind.
That is an awesome best practice right there. I love that.
One thing that it's not like I sit here and ruminate on it all the time, but I do think about it. And we have a cultural attribute at RFG called Iterate to Excellence. And what we mean by that is that we are innovators, we are disruptors. We're constantly living in a state of, we're going to be responsible for disrupting ourselves. There is no finish line. We're just going to iterate to excellence. There's always more work that can be done. And when you live in that state, you experience a fair amount of failure, both in, me as a leader, as well as on our team. And, I believe that failure and mistakes are your greatest learning experiences. It's your greatest training ground. No one wants to be there. It's wildly uncomfortable. But it ultimately, you presume success. Like if you're good at what you do, you'll be successful. So it's hard to learn from that success. Whereas when you stumble, you learn so much from that. Can you share a lesson in your own career, personal or professional, where you've learned from failure?
I love that. I think we all know you learn from success a ton because you repeat it, but you probably learn a ton more by when you got something wrong. You don't have to fail, but maybe you got something wrong, or you realize, hey, I could have done it better. And most importantly, you reflect on it and then institute some change so you do not repeat that and you get 10x better, going forward. So I was very fortunate to be part, like I mentioned this earlier, be part of some really great teams in the past. And I got to launch a product that you touch on really early on, a bunch of years ago that, fortunate enough, it's used in a lot of places across financial services now.
Is this Financial Services Cloud by any chance?
Exactly. It is. So what was really cool there, I was there from day one. And what I learned with that is you got to balance getting something to market really fast with getting it right. And it's the art and science, because you're never going to get a product right on day one, but you can't take too much time because then maybe you might have missed an opportunity. So what I learned there is maybe we didn't calibrate that right. And when we took that to market version 1, it wasn't perfectly what we thought it was. But what I got lucky with that helped us iterate really quickly and get it right. We did not think tank that. Maybe the biggest lesson learned, we didn't think tank that in the home office on our own, and vision the future. We had done that with a collection of folks around the industry, of small, medium, large firms that were in wealth and actually were outside of it. And that was the savior, because we were able to pivot really quick based on our, advisory board, so to speak, to help us figure out use case, needs, capabilities.
And you weren't afraid. You weren't afraid.
We were not afraid.
Where you're we're going to put this out there, we're going to get the feedback, and then we're going to quickly iterate. We're not going to just sit there and, take the loss.
You know what I learned? I got exposed to a lot of VC firms back then, and still now because of that. But what I learned from many of those firms is the best business plans usually are not the same a year later.
Right.
but the ones that are most successful, they get that and pivot and make it better really quick.
Yep. 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 I mean, that's exactly why iterate to excellence is one of our core cultural, because it frees you. It frees you to be confident, to make decisions, to try new things, to know that, you know what, if we fail at this, we're just iterating. We're just iterating. We're not attaching a stigma of failure or mistakes that can't be overcome. One thing I want to just kind of shout you out on this, and it you rolled through it so quickly, but I want to draw a little bit of attention, is you pointed out that in reflecting on what could I have done better, that the goal of that was to be 10x, that I'm going to take this feedback and it's going to help me to be 10x. And I have a 10x mindset as well. I just, I think that is such an important posture. Like this isn't, I want, I just want to learn from this and get incrementally better. That if you are intentional with the team that you build around you, your network outside of your team, that you are very self-reflective and willing to just constantly be in a beginner's mindset, that you can take these learnings and have a 10x result from them. So I just want, you said it very just like it flowed right off your tongue, but that's a big deal.
It is. Totally is.
All right,
it's
so
important.
that tees us up for our perfect last question. I'm a quote girl. I'm a reader. So I always like to ask, share with us either your favorite quote and why, or your favorite book and why.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I will do it. I'll pull a red ribbon through a whole conversation, because we've been talking about basically first principles, innovation. The book is probably right above my head. It's probably blurred so you can't see it. And it's going to be very germane to the area I live. So I'm in New Jersey right now, and I love New York history, obsessed with it. And a book that I love is about the Brooklyn Bridge. It's called The Great Bridge. And what that bridge is about was doing something that had never been done before. So just being super innovative. It was the first bridge that was a suspension bridge over a mile long, double or triple the length of any other bridge. Super innovative of product or capability that was used, of using steel to make it a suspension bridge. How they did casings that went down to the earth level, built this incredible foundation. It created what people talk about, the bends now, was discovered during that. So it had a upside healthcare impact to it. It created the verticalization of New York because of how they built, the piles made you realize how you could build skyscrapers. But it was all about everything I just said was first principles, first of a kind, never been done before, no precedent, super innovative. And I love that, because you realize anything is possible. You just got to plan it out, build the right team around you, iterate on the fly. If anyone knows about that, they had to change a lot over the 15 years of building that bridge. So.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I haven't read that book, so that's going straight onto my Kindle. I'll read it before I see you next time. Rohit, thank you so much. This has been such a treat, such a gift. I know everyone's going to get so much out of this. You dropped nugget after nugget after nugget. So I am immensely grateful for your time, and thank you for joining us in Disruption Blueprint.
Thank you for having me on. This is a ton of fun.
Thank you for listening to the Disruption Blueprint podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.rfgadvisory.com or schedule a call on our advisor resources page. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Information here may be provided in part by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither our guest nor RFG Advisory guarantee the accuracy of third-party sources. The views expressed here are those of our guest. They do not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, its employees, or its clients. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place. RFG Advisory is an SEC-registered investment advisor. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of RFG by the Commission, nor does it indicate that RFG or any associated investment advisory representative has attained a particular level of skill or ability.